Let's get this Tenyi deck profile video up to 15 likes and I'll take you through some test hands. This archetype is one of my favorites in the recent years of YuGiOh releases, so stay tuned for the profile and let me know in the comments what you think. If you're watching this video, I know two things about you. You've got really good taste in YouTube content and you love YuGiOh. If you love YuGiOh, like I know you do, what you need to do right now is head over to YuGiOh Community Auctions on Facebook. Their link will be in the description. Join that group and enter the competition that they are running over there. You have the chance to win one of 3 YuGiOh Pop vinyls and they look absolutely amazing. Don't miss out on the chance. I'm pretty sure the competition's running all through June until the release of Toon Chaos next week. Get amongst it, get about it, and tell them that Duels Down Under sent you. Today I'm going to take you through my main deck and my extra deck for the profile. Remember that the side deck you are running is entirely dependent on what's being played in your local area. Let's put the extra deck to the side and get straight into the main. You've probably already seen, but we are running triple copies of Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. This guy is one of the best Tenyi monsters in the deck. When it is banished from the graveyard, it will allow you to special summon a Tenyi monster from your deck. The next card is Tenyi Spirit Vashuda. We saw this make us come up, I suppose, in the Orcus deck, the going second version that allowed you to banish him from the graveyard when you controlled a non-effect monster to target a card on the field and return it to the hand of its owner. The next 3 of we are running is Tenyi Spirit Shtana. This water guy is an amazing card. When a non-effect monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, this guy allows you to banish it from the graveyard, special summon one of those destroyed monsters, and then destroy an opponent's monster on their side of the field. Pretty good advantage generation there. It can basically bring back a non-effect monster from the graveyard, whether it's Berserker or Monk, so you can start continuing your plays. The next 3 of we are running, and our final 3 of in the Tenyi monsters is Adara. This is the level 1 tuner that when it's banished from the graveyard can actually bring you back one of your banished Tenyi monsters. So this is how you start getting your advantage generation. You will go into a link monster using this guy, banish it from the graveyard, bring back one of your other Tenyi monsters, and hopefully start special summoning once again. We are running 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Mapura. This is the targeting negator. When one of your non-effect monsters are targeted by an opponent's card, it can banish itself from the graveyard and negate that effect. Tenyi Spirit Nahada, probably the worst out of all of the Tenyis. It seems to me that all of the wind monsters are the bad ones in this game for some reason. I'm not too sure. But yeah, this guy gives a non-effect monster a 1500 attack boost. Not too useful, but is still another Tenyi name. Usually this guy is the first guy sided out if I need to make some changes during a siding. The non-Tenyi monsters now, we have a single copy of Mare for our token generation, also a tuner, and level modulation is really important because we don't only run level 8s in the extra deck. The next card we are running is a Needhog Generator Boss of Ice. This guy is really good to stop your opponent's special summoning. It works like a Thunder King Ryo or an El Shaddai Grista, where it can negate an inherent summon by attributing itself. We are running a single hand trap in the main deck. It is Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, still probably the most versatile hand trap in the game. Stop searching, stops dumping to the graveyard, and can stop a special summon from the deck as well. So this is still probably one of the premier hand traps in the game of YuGiOh. If you don't have Ash Blossoms, you could probably run DD Crows, maybe even Ghost Bells, or you could probably try out the new Moonlit and Winter Chill, I believe its name is. All probably fairly decent choices, but I think Ash Blossom is the best way to go in the main deck. Onto the spell cards now. We are running Triple Pot of Desires. Now, every time I take someone through my profile for this deck, they're like, don't you ever draw into the Desires by running 3. I have to admit, I've been lucky enough since this card has come out to never actually draw into another copy of Desires. More often than not, I banish the other 2 copies off the top, which is probably the best case scenario for this card. So I'm going to keep it at 3. It is an easy 2 of if you do want to find some more space for other cards in the deck, but because we run all of our Tenyi monsters, all the good Tenyi monsters at 3, banishing a couple of copies of those from a Desires isn't a big deal anyway. So I would probably keep this at 3, so we could probably use this card more than once in a game. The next card we are running is Dark Ruler No More. Triple copies of this. Remember that most of our extra deck monsters are actually non-effect monsters. We are running Berserker, we are running Monk. So what we can actually do is we can normal summon a Tenyi monster, go into a Monk, then we can run Dark Ruler No More. If we use Vishuddha for that, we're going to be able to get a body off of the field by using Vishuddha's effect from the graveyard, and it's not going to affect our monsters at all because they are non-effect monsters. Dark Ruler No More simply slows our opponent down as long as they can't negate it with a spell or trap card, and it'll keep us playing longer and more competitively. I would run this at 3 in the main every day of the week in this deck. Vessel for the Dragon Cycle. Now, this is the card that you want to see early on when so it's basically a Foolish Burial for worm monsters. You can dump it to the graveyard, and then if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can then add another worm monster with a different name, or a Tenyi monster, sorry, with a different name to your hand. The play with this card is when you are about to make Shaman and you know you've got your play, you are going to dump a Mare. You're then going to bring out your Monk. Well, your Monk should be on the field already. You've got your Monk on the field, you send the Mare and you search another Tenyi card, special summon it, go into your Shaman, bring back the Mare, start special summoning tokens, and you are then away and ready to start comboing off for some epic plays. We're running 2 copies of the Tenyi field spell, Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi. All non-effect monsters are unaffected by monster effects, and when your opponent special summons an effect monster while you control a face-down monster or non-effect monster, you can draw 2 cards. So this is the further draw engine on top of Pot of Desires for the deck. So I feel like this card is pretty good. For those bricky hands, and if you've already seen the field spell, we can play Mystic Mine. We've got 2 targets to get rid of it, so it's important that we are playing some sort of defense if we seem to draw bricks, which can happen in this deck. We're running a single copy of Terraforming, so we can search out whichever field spell we need at any given time, and a single copy of Pot of Avarice. You would be surprised at how quickly we speed through our 3 copies of Monk. So being able to recycle our extra deck monsters and a couple of important main deck monsters, maybe even our Ash Blossoms should we need them, we are able to then generate more advantage and more draw engine by drawing another 2 cards. That is our traps completed. And let's have a look at that's our spells. Let's have a look at our traps. We have 2 copies of Fists of the Unrivaled Tenyi. This is the counter trap. I feel like whenever an archetype has a counter trap, it's a good idea to utilize it where you can. Remember that when a monster spell or trap effect is activated while you control a face-up non-effect monster, negate the activation. That is an excellent effect because even if it's a token you've generated with Mare, you are able to negate that effect. A pretty good card in my opinion. Sometimes all you can do in the first turn is normal summon, link off into Monk. If you have this card in your hand, usually you will actually survive until the next turn, because using this card at the right time is quite critical to prolonging your life in the game. The second effect of this card is also quite interesting. What you can do is if it is destroyed, you can special summon 1 non-effector monster from your extra deck, and you will see in the extra deck which monster I have chosen to go for. but we're running 2 copies of that. A little bit of protection, we are running double copies of Paleozoic Dinomiscus. It's okay to get your Tenyi monsters in the graveyard, so when you have to discard after the effect resolves, it's an okay thing to send your Tenyi monsters to the graveyard. It's no big deal at all. You'll be able to use their graveyard effect to banish them to hopefully give you some other advantage as well. Really good disruptive card here. And our last 2 trap cards are Waterfall of the Dragon Soul. This card is add 1 worm type monster from your deck to your hand, or send any number of worm type monsters from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard and draw cards equal to the number of monsters you sent to the graveyard +1. So pretty much what you can do is fill up your grave with Tenyi monsters if you wish, worm monsters, and then it'll give you a +1 anyway. So yeah, that is our trap lineup for the deck. Not too many changes I would make. I would maybe consider, if I wanted to really fit this deck out for going first, maybe a few more counter traps like Solemn Judgment, Solemn Strike, and the like. But for now, this is the way I like the deck to run. I see enough of my engine early enough that I'm able to mount some kind of board. The extra deck we are running, of course, triple copies of Monk. You could probably run 2 copies and one of the other normal Link 2s if you like, but I prefer to go with 3 copies of Monk. This is probably the most important card in the extra deck, and it is really important to manage it quite well. This is why we run the Pot of Avarice. Double copies of Shaman. Like I said, going into Shaman and bringing back your Mare is really good play to start comboing off and getting into some really decent plays. It's going to get you into some of your big guys, like our next card, Tenyi, a Berserker of the Tenyi. This guy is one of your big beat sticks. Usually bring this guy back with Shtana's effect. If you banish it from the graveyard, they might destroy a monk. You can bring back a Berserker, and then you can start going nuts in your next turn. Another Link 3 we are running is Draco Masters. This guy says that he cannot be destroyed by battle with an effect monster. If you control no other effect monsters, you can destroy effect monsters your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters you control and or in your graveyard. So if you've got 3 copies of Monk in your graveyard and maybe a copy of Berserker, that's giving you up to 4 pops. So it's really good. Plus you can also have a couple of Mare tokens on the board ready to go. Yeah, so this is kind of a must play. The newest of the Tenyi cards is, of course, the Link 4. This will also give you some token generation as well. It's pretty decent. It gains the attack of one of the monsters that is targeted. So only a 1-of in the deck. This monster it could have been better, but it does what it needs to do. We're running a single copy of Access Code Talker. We are running heaps of different attributes. We pretty much have everything in there. I think we actually do run every attribute. So being able to get as many pops as we can with the different attributes, we're going to be sitting pretty well with this. We do need effect monsters, so it can be a little difficult to get it out sometimes, but if you link into the right monsters straight up, you will be able to get it out okay. Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, probably my favorite Tenyi card. This guy, when your opponent activates a monster's effect, you can banish it. So it doesn't negate the effect, but it does get rid of it, which is a really good effect. If this attacking card destroys an effect monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, this card gains attack equal to the monster's original attack, and it can also make a second attack on a monster during the battle phase. So if your opponent has a few monsters on the field and you need to get rid of them, what you need to do is attack into attack into something you can, and if they've got an absolute monster on board, destroy it, and then you can attack again with this guy. Really good card. For the level modulation and a little bit more disruption, we are running Yazi, Evil of the Yang Zing. This is just to help us clear the board. He will tribute itself and destroy, or will destroy himself and one of your opponent's cards as well. So that's a good card. We run lots of level 4s in the deck, so we are going for an Abyss Dweller. It doesn't turn off our graveyard, it only turns off the opponent's graveyard, and you all know that in the current game, the opponent's graveyard is something that you do want to be able to slow down. We're running a number 41 Baguska, the Terribly Tired Tape here. Not only is this artwork absolutely phenomenal, I do think that because we run so many normal monsters, that running this card in the extra deck is a good idea. It'll turn it to defense mode, turn the opponent's card to defense mode, and then we can use our big fat non-effect monsters to do what they need to do. And finally, just for the situation where our opponent might decide to destroy our face down counter trap, we are running a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. 4500 attack, probably the most powerful vanilla monster in the game. If we can get this guy out free with a pop of our trap card, why not take advantage of that? This guy's going to be hard to get over in battle, and of course, with the field spell on board, our non-effect monsters can't actually be destroyed by card effects. So it's really, really tough to get rid of as long as you stay in control of the field spell. That's the profile. A couple of suggestions for the side deck if you are looking to side. I would consider things like evenly matched for going second, maybe some Ras Sphere modes to take out the Ash Blossoms and Joyous Springs, and then any sort of other defensive cards that you know you might need depending on what your local matchups are going to be. Summon Limit can be quite good as well. You can basically sit behind one of your big berserkers should you need to, and then try and wait for them to find a way through that. I just want to say thank you so much for sticking around for the profile. Let me know in the comments any suggestions or any changes that you would make to the deck. Are you a Tenyi player? How are you running the deck? I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned for the next deck profile video, and of course I will see you in the next one.